Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Michael. I'm going to be your host for around about the next 45 minutes. Brand new topic for us today. It's obviously we're looking at CH50 accounts, and we're looking at one of the corrections series of webinars that we're running at the moment. So specifically, we're looking at the sort of invoices and orders, and if you need to make changes or corrections in that area, what are the considerations and what are the options you've got? So, as I say, it's probably lasted around about 45 minutes. Sometimes it's a bit of a stab in the dark when it's a new topic, so do bear with us. Right, a little bit of housekeeping before we get started though. So you don't need a microphone for these sessions, just in case you are new to it, you don't need a microphone. If you've got one and you do enable it, you will just find you muted automatically. So you can't verbally ask us anything, but you can enter your questions and your comments into the questions panel. And to access that, you just need to click on the taskbar down the right-hand side of your screen. You'll have a little icon. So if you give it a click, it's the one that looks like the speech bubble. You'll find it expands and you've got access to that box in the bottom corner. So any questions, comments, pop them in there. Remember to click send. I'm sure everyone's all had that sort of, why hasn't someone responded to me? And they've gone back to Outlook and they've seen the email that they forgot to click send, or maybe you're in a Teams chat. Again, you forgot to click send. So remember to click send. It'll pop up on our other screens and we'll try and answer those as best we can. Today we're joined by Abby and Jackie. They'll be in the background helping to answer those questions. Obviously, it can get quite complex at times, some of them, the questions that you're likely to have, so do bear with us. We'll try and pick up as many as we can. If anyone wants a copy of today's slides, those are available to download again via that little icon on your toolbar on the right-hand side. Do take that opportunity. There's the full color version of the slides, the standard PDF, and there is a version where the color's stripped out, what we term the print-friendly one. However, the detailed information that you require, if you're after step-by-step guides, you're not going to get that from the handout. You're going to get that from our help center. So get into our help center, do a search, you should easily find the information that you're after. Right, let's have a quick look at what we're going to be covering in this session. So we're going to start with a little bit of an introduction to just corrections in general. We'll then look at the invoices and credits area, pick up on some of those common questions, those common scenarios that people come across. But I also want to remind you for not only invoices and credits, but sales orders, purchase orders, of what that process looks like. Because it's very important when you're looking at a correction that you understand that process. So what stage of the invoices and credits process does a particular transaction sit at? Similar for sales orders, purchase orders. If you aren't that familiar with those, there are separate webinars that just cover those particular modules, so they'll cover those sort of processes in a lot more detail than what we're going to cover today. Today we just want to really concentrate on the correction side of things, but we will touch on the process for each of these sections. Just towards the end as well, we'll pick up on additional support, so point you in the right direction, give you an idea of maybe some of the upcoming webinars that we got booked in as well. But also, if there are any outstanding questions, I'll try joining in with those as well. We'll try and, as I say, we'll try and answer as many as we can, but do bear with us. Right, okay, so let's get started. Now, just before I do start, I should mention that obviously the session is being recorded. So if you want a little bit of a recap on anything we cover, or if you miss any of it, or you want to share it with your colleagues, just watch out for your follow-up email. It will include the recording, but also links so you can register for other webinars and also to our recordings list as well. Right, let's get started then. So a little bit of background to corrections first of all, and I suppose to a certain extent this goes back to when I used to work on our telephone support team. And the important part of corrections and helping you to troubleshoot them quickly and sort of sort it out and then move on is, one, understanding what you've done. So what have you actually done in the software? What stage is it? If you've entered an invoice, what have you done so far? What's actually happened? So have you updated it to the ledgers, for instance? That type of thing. Also, what do you want to happen? What is the outcome that you want? So do you need to print a credit note to send that to you? your customer? Have you just made a mistake and actually you just want to delete that? Do you want to see anything on the activity? Do you want to see the original invoice and the credit note if that's what's required? So understanding what you've done and what you want to happen, if you understand those, it's just a case of getting from A to B and sort of plotting that journey. So what are the steps involved? And sometimes there's a number of options depending on what aspects of Sage you actually use. So we'll get stuck into some of those scenarios, and we're going to start with invoices and credits. I'll just give you roughly an idea of what that process looks like, and then we'll get stuck into some of the common scenarios that we get asked about, and then we'll do the same for sales orders and then purchase orders. So let's start with the invoices and credits module and the invoice process itself, which is fairly simple. Just a case of entering your invoice. Now, I've put in the middle there, print or email. It's not a critical part of that process. And all you're doing is you're generating a document that you're probably going to send to your customer. But it doesn't stop you doing anything or limit your choices within the software. So it's as far as the invoice and credits module is concerned, it's enter the invoice and then update to the ledgers. Now, when you do that, when you update to the ledgers, and that's the critical point in that process. That's the bit that would determine really what options you've got available, and that's when you need to start thinking about some of those options. So we've got some scenarios to consider. The first one is you've entered an invoice and it's not updated yet, so you haven't updated to the ledgers. You want to add or amend or even remove items from that invoice. So we're going to cover these in order. What I'll do is I'll just quickly switch to my desktop and we'll run through a few of these. So you should see my desktop just at that point. I've got virtually a blank set of data, so it makes it nice and easy for us to follow that through and see the sort of the knock-on effect that these options have. So if we just pop into invoices and credits, you see it's nothing there at the moment. I'll have a look at my customers as well. I've got 5 customers, but as you can see, the balances are all 0. Now, if we go to invoices and credits and we just quickly create a new invoice, I'll do it for customer number 1. And I'll choose that item there, stock item number 1 as well. And if I save that, so I'm just going to keep them really simple. Now, if I just save it, there's nothing on the customer so far. There'll be nothing on their activity if we have a quick look. So no transactions on the audit trail, so there's nothing there at all. As far as the product is concerned, that was the item I popped one of onto the invoice for. Again, quantity in stock, it's still 10. So nothing has changed yet. All we've done is we've entered an invoice onto the invoice list. So we saved that initially, almost like a draft invoice at this stage. So because we haven't updated it to the ledgers yet, which is this option here, we haven't committed it to our accounts. If we want to make any changes, we can do that. We can go into it and we can make whatever changes we want. We might even just want to go in and actually we just entered that by mistake. We've entered it, but actually the customer doesn't want to proceed now. So we could even just delete that if required. So that at that stage, that's a nice easy one. The scenarios start to complicate a little bit when we get to the point where the invoice is updated to the ledgers. So if we do that, I'll leave this one selected. I'll click Update Ledgers. We'll just preview that one. It shows me the Update Ledgers report. And this is the point when it flags the invoice as being posted. And if we pop into transactions, you can see we've now got transaction number 1 on my list. It's an SI. That would also appear on the customer's activity. So we can see there's a balance on the account now. And also, if we go back to products and services, you can see that the quantity in stock is now 9. So it's reduced by that 1 from that invoice. So as far as the invoices and credits module is concerned, that's the point. The have you updated it to the ledgers? So it indicates that one. Is there a yes in that posted column? If there's not, you haven't. So it means you can make whatever changes you want. Now, if I look at that invoice and think, oh, right, customers got back to me and actually they want to add actually they wanted 2 of that item, or they want an additional product. Now, at that stage, because this one is flagged as having been posted, if I open the invoice, so if I double click it, I'll get a message and it tells me this invoice stroke credit note has already been posted. Any amendments will not be posted to the ledgers. I'll just okay that. Sometimes you might not get that message. So you'll in recent versions, when you get this type of message, there's a little tick box there saying don't show again. So you might not get that message because you've ticked the box previously. But I haven't, so it still pops up. And I just click OK, and I can view the invoice, but you'll see a lot of it is grayed out. So I can't click into the quantity, or I can double click it and it will bring up the item line details, but I can't make any changes. So I can't amend quantities, unit prices, discounts, anything like that. So I'll just OK that. And if I click down to sort of the second line, I can't go in and add items. Similarly, I wouldn't be able to take anything off that invoice. So once I've updated the ledgers, I'm a little bit stuck at that point. So you've got to look at what are your options at that point. Now, if it was just a case, right, well, actually the one order should have been 2, I've got a number of options at this stage. Now, one is just obviously just to invoice for the difference. And the other would be to reverse it all out. So actually enter a credit note, or possibly even delete it. And that's the scenarios we're going to come on to next. Right, now let's do another one. This time we're going to enter an invoice. I'll do it for customer number 2. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do what we term a non-stock item. So it doesn't record any stock levels. It's still a product and it's still got things like a price associated with that, but we don't record any stock levels against that one. It's flagged as non-stock. And it does make the world of difference when it comes to the options that you've got available to you. So here we've got the non-stock item. I'll just leave it as 1. And I'm going to save that. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to post it. So I'm going to update it to the ledgers. Now, the common query, I suppose, relating to that is I've updated the ledgers in error. Maybe you had it selected and you didn't realize, and you've gone to select a different one. So you've had more than one selected and you've gone to update ledgers, and because it's highlighted number 2 as well, it's updated that one as well. So maybe you've updated to the ledgers in error. So again, if we go into customers, you can see there's a balance on that customer. Obviously, products and services wise, this is a non-stock item, this one that we just added. So it doesn't record any activity for this one because it's a non-stock. So there's no movement of stock on that one. We don't record a stock level against that particular product type. So if we are in a position where we've got this one and we think, well, we've updated it to the ledgers, we've done that one in error, what options have we got? Now, it really depends what you want to do at that point. That invoice contains non-stock items only. Now, with it being not a non-stock item, it means there's no movement of stock. So I can ignore that one. What I really need to just consider is, what do I want to happen on the customer's account? At the moment, on the customer's account, there's a balance of £30. Do I want to leave that there, or because I've updated in error, do I want to remove it? So because it's non-stock, you've got that choice. What I could do is just go into the customer's account, and we could go into activity, find the transaction in question, and if I don't want it, what I could do is I could delete the transaction. this option here, delete the transaction. So you've got options to edit them as well. But I could delete that transaction from the customer's account, and as far as that customer's account is concerned, none the wiser. So if I'll do that. So that's now deleted. And obviously we can, things like deletions like that, we can hide them as well. We can go into settings, company preferences on the parameters tab. You've got a little option where you can hide deleted transactions. That's something that should be switched on by default. So it means that you wouldn't then see this transaction on the customer's account. It doesn't impact it anyway. It's flagged as deleted. Now back to a zero balance. However, what we've still got is I've still got that invoice on the list. Now I can't do anything with that invoice on the list. It's posted. I can't make any changes to it. But what I could do, let's say I want to raise that one again and just leave it there, almost saved as a draft, is I could either delete this one and then create a new one. Or if you're on the standard or professional level of the software, you could highlight this invoice number 2 as it stands. And I could say, right, I want to duplicate that one. And then it's got all the details of the original invoice on there. I'll just save it. So that new one hasn't been posted yet. And the original one that was updated in error, so invoice number 2, we can just highlight that one. And if we're happy to do so, we can click delete at the top. It'll remove it from the list. So we're sort of none the wiser at that point in my accounts that actually it needed to, that we'd entered it in the first place. Now let's go on to the fourth scenario. Now the fourth scenario is going to be where I've entered an invoice, but this time it's going to be a stock item. So there's going to be that movement of stock when we update the invoice to the ledgers. Right, so new invoice. We'll choose customer number 3 this time. And I'm going to choose stock item. Let's choose stock item number 3 as well. We'll work with the 3s on this one. So you can see I've got 10 in stock. We'll OK that one. And I'm just going to leave it as 1. So we'll save it. And again, let's say we've updated this one in error. So we'll highlight it, update it to the ledgers just so it's in the correct position. Close out of that. It's now flagged as having been posted. Customer's account, number 3, it shows the balance. But also in products and services, we've now got, stock item number 3. It's got some movement there as well. Now, if we hadn't updated that invoice in error, that would still be quantity in stock would still be 10. So we got that to consider as well. So our starting point is we've entered an invoice, it's a stock item, and it's posted to the ledgers, so it's updated. So 2 things need to happen to get us back to almost before we'd updated that one. One is we need to remove the balance from the customer's account. And secondly, essentially, we want to increase our stock back to what it was. So we want to increase our stock back to 3. Back to 10, I should say. Get carried away with customer 3 and stock item 3 now. So we want to increase that quantity in stock back to 10. Now, sometimes there's more than one way to crack the same nut. One, and the easiest option probably, is to, within invoices, it would be to raise a credit note. Now, if I enter a credit note and I update that to the ledgers, when I update that to the ledgers, it's going to book the stock back in as well. But it will also put that credit on the customer's account. So it comes back to that question, one of the original questions, what do you want to happen? So on that customer's account, it then would mean that we've got an invoice, but also we've got a credit. Yes, they cancel each other out. So think about things like customer statements. Do we want our customer to see that we've maybe entered an invoice and then we've credited it out on their account? Or do we want to just maybe delete it and do everything manually? So we've got a couple of options. Now, In the invoicing credits module, again, if you're on the standard or the professional level, you've got this credit invoice option. Now that makes it really quick to enter your credit note. So rather than go to new credit at the top and start keying in the details from scratch, what you could do is just highlight the relevant invoice and I could click credit invoice at the top. So it copies all the original details, and when I save that, it'll ask me, do you want to update the credit note and allocate it to invoice number 4, which is the invoice that we've generated. If I click yes, it tells me the credit note has essentially number 5, but it's created transaction number 4 in my audit trail, and it's been updated, and it's actually managed to allocate it to the relevant invoice. So it could be a good little time saver if you've not come across that credit invoice option before. And we can just close out. So at that stage, we are back to, we've got an invoice and a credit. So essentially they net each other off. On the customer's account, we're back to a 0 balance. If we have a look at the activity, again, you can see we've got that invoice and credit and them allocated, the sort of net each other off. As far as the product levels is concerned, the stock levels, if we go back in, and we can now see that the quantity in stock is back to 10. Now the other option we had for that scenario, so if we just pop onto customers, actually not customers, so if we pop onto invoices and credits, and what I'll do is I'll generate another invoice. So let's do customer number 3 again. Again, we'll choose product number 3, which is back to 10 in stock. And I'm going to quickly save it. And again, I'm going to update that to the ledgers. So again, we'll just pretend that we've updated this one in error. Well, now, if I have updated that one in error, and I think, well, actually, I just want to get rid of that. So my options. 1, I could delete the invoice from this list. So I'll highlight it, click delete at the top. It's gone. On the customer's account, you can see we've got a balance there of 30. We open that into the activity, find the invoice that's been posted to it in error, and again, we could delete that transaction. So with yes to that, you'll see it appears in red there, so that deleted SI doesn't impact on the balance on the account or anything like that at this stage. So that's done. Now the only thing that's left to think about at this stage is, because that invoice was updated and it was a stock item, it's adjusted the stock levels on this one. So the additional step at this stage is just to boost my stock levels back to what they were. So I've adjusted one out in error by updating that invoice. So we got the adjustment in option. Make sure you've got the right product selected. I want to increase that by 1, and I'm just going to save that. So we're then back to 10. So again, you've got those couple of different ways to do that. Now, I suppose the big question with it, if you have updated an invoice in error, first of all, do you use stock control? So do you record stock levels? If the answer to that one is no, then you've got that option just to start deleting everything if you've done it in error. But if you do use stock control and there are what you term stock items on that invoice, the question would be is, the next question is going to be is, do you use stock valuation? Now I'm going to go into stock in a lot more detail in tomorrow's correction session, where we look at correcting stock. So we're going to be looking at some additional considerations, so how Sage uses first in, first out. So if you are in that position where you do need to do an adjustment, what do you need to think about? What are the considerations? So that'll be covered in tomorrow's session. For now, what I would say, if you are in that position and it's a stock level, you use the stock valuation reports as well, then follow the information in our help articles. Right, so that's, I suppose, the main scenarios, those main corrections within the invoices and credits module. List them back on screen there. Next, we're going to go on to sales orders. Now, sales orders and purchase orders, you're only going to have those available to you if you're on the professional level of the software, which is why I covered invoicing first. So invoicing, it's available on the essentials level, and it's also available on the standard level of Sage 50 accounts. But sales orders and purchase orders, what we're about to cover, it's applicable to those of you that are on the professional level of the software only. So let's pick up on, first of all, on sales orders and that process. Now, it's a little bit more involved, the sales order process. So you'd enter an order, similar to the way that you would enter an invoice. You would then allocate your stock. So essentially, you're reserving that stock. Then, when you're ready to dispatch that, you have a dispatch option. Now, it's the dispatch option at this stage that forms that crucial part. What it does, it creates a dispatch note or a delivery note, but it also creates an invoice. It adds it to the invoices and credits ledger. But it adjusts the stock as well as you dispatch it. So there's three things. It creates that delivery note, it generates the invoice, and if you record stock levels, it adjusts your stock for you at that point as well. So that's the crucial part of that one. Now it generates the invoice and pops it onto the invoices and credits ledger. And then for it to actually hit the customer's account, you still need to go into invoices and credits and update it to the ledgers. Now, your stock has already been adjusted at the point of the dispatch. So it doesn't adjust stock again. So the update ledgers bit within invoices and credits ledger, it's not as critical to the sales order process. It's the dispatch and create invoice step. That's the one where the complications start at that point. And I suppose that's when we start to get queries. Prior to that, you're generally all right. Right, let's have a look at some scenarios then. So again, you've entered an order. If you've not allocated it at that stage, so you've not allocated your stock, then you can do whatever you want. It's a bit like when we entered the invoice and we hadn't done anything else with it. We've essentially saved that as a draft invoice. So if you've entered it, you've saved it, but you've not allocated stock, absolutely fine. You can go into that and you can make whatever changes you want, or even just go in and delete it if you want to. Next, the next scenario, a little bit different, is you've entered an order and you've allocated your stock to it. Now, if you then wanted to increase your quantity, you can do that. You can also decrease your quantity as well, but there are additional steps that you would need to follow. So let's just quickly follow that one through, and then we'll come back to the options 4 and 5. So back to my screen. We'll pop into sales orders. You can see it's blank at the moment. So we'll do new. We'll do customer number 4. And we'll just choose a non-stock item for the time being. Now what I'm going to do this time, because I want to look at amending quantities, I'm going to set the quantity to 5. Obviously it just multiplies up and you would save it. Now we do get prompted, do you want to allocate the stock at this point? Now I am going to choose allocate now. It's there just to make the process just that little bit quicker, rather than just say, right, I want to allocate later, and then you would go and manually allocate the stock as and when. But we'll just click allocate now. So allocated, it says full. So essentially we've entered a quantity of 5 and we've reserved that stock. We've allocated it to the order itself. Now, if we, let's say customer, we now want to increase that quantity, or maybe we want to add additional items to it, we can still do that. we can click down and we can make changes if needed. If we want to increase the quantity, let's say to 6, I can save the changes. And because I'm increasing the quantity, I've only got 5 allocated to that order at the moment. It's saying, right, do you want to allocate now or not? I'll choose allocate now. And it's now up to the £180. A little bit different if I want to reduce the quantity. So let's say I had put 6 in originally. And let's say it should have only been 5. When I try to save it this time, or when I just tab out the field, I'll get quantity entered is less than the quantity already allocated or dispatched. So what I need to do, it says quantity on order has been changed to the quantity allocated plus the quantity dispatched. So I'll just OK that. You see it doesn't make any change to that one at that point. But if we just save the changes and I want to reduce that quantity, what I've got to do is I've got to select it. I need to go back into amend allocations. I could take it all off order if I wanted to, but all I want to do is I want to change this. I want to change it to 5, just to say 5's allocated, or I could set it to 0 as well. And I'm going to set the dispatch to 0 as well. And then we'll just close out. And then it's now part allocated. And what I will be able to do is I'll be able to go in and I'll be able to reduce the quantity at that point. It will let me do that. So I'll save it and that's it done. So back to where we were. Just a little one that sometimes can catch people out. Right, so we got an order. It's fully allocated. The next step in the sales order process would be to dispatch that. Now, we can dispatch in a few different ways. If you want all the details of working with sales orders, do check out our recording on the sales orders. So again, the link will be included on your follow-up email if you want to check out those recordings. Right, what we're going to do is we're going to dispatch it then. So again, we could go in via amend allocations. We've got the dispatch option here. Just be a case of us making sure that we've got the right quantities here in the dispatch column. We've also got the dispatch orders and also a dispatch notes. So I'm just going to click dispatch orders. And this is where we're prompted. So this is a bit like the update ledgers on invoices and credits, that's sort of the point that where things actually happen in the background. So it's saying, do you wish to create an invoice, update stock, and record a dispatch? Now if I click yes to that, and I'll just click print later on that one. So this is now flagged as being dispatched. If we go into products and services, if we'd recorded stock levels, obviously it was a non-stock item on there, but if we'd recorded stock levels, we would have had stock movement against the relevant, so you would have had transactions on the activity. And then if we have a look on invoices, we've got the invoice entity. It's not posted yet, but it is saved. And that comes to where we've maybe dispatched in error. This brings us on to the sort of the final sales order scenario where we've dispatched in error. Now again, that question is, the first question, do you record stock levels? If I don't and I've dispatched in error, then it's a bit more flexible. I could delete the invoice from here. I don't want it. I could go back to the sales orders list. I could delete that from there as well. Excuse me. Because I don't record stock levels and I almost like start again. If it's a big sales order, I could obviously use the duplicate option just to save me keying it in again. Now, when it is if it is a stock item, a little bit different. So we'll quickly do another sales order. We'll choose customer number 5. This time I'm going to choose a stock item. Excuse me. Right, so I'll do customer number 5, I'll do stock item number 5, and actually I'll set the quantity to 5 as well. We'll use all the 5s. And we'll just save it. We'll allocate it, close out, and what we'll do is we'll quickly dispatch it as well. So yes to that. So that's now completed as far as the sales order list is concerned. So on products and services, stock item number 5 is now down to 5 in stock, so it's adjusted out the 5 that we've dispatched. And it's also generated an invoice for customer number 5. Now, if we're in that position and we think, oh, we've done that in error, we've got a number of options at this stage. The simplest option would be to just delete this invoice. So get rid of invoice number 5. It hasn't been posted yet, so nothing on the customer's account just at this stage. So we'll highlight it, delete it. We don't want that to be updated in error. Sales order wise, we might think, well, actually, we've updated that one in error, we've completed it. We just want rid of that one as well. So actually, we'll delete that. So it's gone. Now, the only thing that hasn't happened at that point is on our products and services, because we record stock levels, we've got 5 less now in stock than what we would have had originally. So again, at this stage, I don't want to get too involved with stock valuation. That's more what we're concerned with in tomorrow's session when we're looking at stock. We'll go in a bit more in depth into the movement of stock and cost prices and things like that. But at this stage, what we really want to do is we want to push that quantity to increase the quantity in stock by the value or the quantity that we dispatched in error. So we're just going to quantity of 5. I'll just leave everything else as is, save it, close out, and that's it done. Now, for that sales order where you have dispatched an error, there are quite a few different scenarios depending on whether you do record stock levels, whether you use stock valuation in the software, and also for your stock, if it's a fixed cost price that you have when you buy that stock, or is it variable? So a number of considerations in there. I would say if you're in that position, scenario number 5, follow the Help Center article through. It will guide you through the steps necessary for you to correct that. There's quite a few different options depending on your specific scenario. Again, keep your questions coming. We've still got Abby and Jackie on hand to answer those questions. So keep them busy, keep your questions coming if you're not sure about something. Right, we're going to move on though, and the final area that we're going to look at is, if I can find the right button, there we go. We're going to look at the purchase orders module, and again, just pick up on some of the corrections there. Now, the purchase order process is, again, enter the order. So again, if you just entered the order and you've done nothing else, if you needed to make changes, you can do whatever you want. You can go back in, you can delete it, you can add items, remove items, change quantities, prices, whatever you want. It's just really saved as a draft order at that point. Next, similar to sales orders, where you allocate stock, you place the order. So you can say, right, this order, it's now on order with my supplier. So essentially it orders you're flagging it as if you've ordered the stock. After that, the next step is to receive the order itself, so receive the goods. So you show that stock coming in. What you will then do is at some point you will be invoiced by your supplier. Now you've got 2 options, and it's a bit of a 50-50 split, this one, the way that people choose to do it. You can either, from the purchase order screen, you can either update the purchase order to the ledgers, and it would feed the information through to the batch invoice screen. Or what some people do is they just go direct to suppliers and then they choose the batch invoice from there. So almost like continuing the process without actually linking that invoice to a specific purchase order itself. They'll just literally straight into suppliers, batch invoice, and enter the details there. They purposely only use the purchase order itself as a way of essentially booking the stock in and showing it as being placed on order. So 50-50 split on that one. Let's just have a quick look at that. So I'll go back to my screen. This time we'll go into purchase orders. We'll click new and we'll choose our first supplier and we'll choose the product code and we'll choose, let's choose item number 2. So there's 10 of those in stock currently. I'm going to say I'm going to order another 10 and then I'll save it. I'll just choose order later for the time being. This is a bit like the allocate now option or allocate later that we had on sales orders. So I'll just order later for the time being. Now we've got this, essentially we've got a batch purchase order at this, sorry, a draft purchase order at this stage, I should say. And it means that if I want to make any changes, I can do whatever I want. I just go back into it, and again, I could switch it to a different supplier if I needed to, or add items and amend quantities and prices. So whatever you want at that point. Just save it. This time I am going to place it on order. So we'll click the order now option. I'm not going to print it. I'm just going to save it. So now that's on order. Now, again, if I was in a similar position earlier where if I wanted to go in and increase the quantity ordered, I can easily do that. And then I would just place the additional quantity on order as well. If I want to decrease it, I've got to come in and I've got to amend the deliveries, or I've got to go in and take it back off order. Again, I've got those two options. If you're not familiar with the purchase order process itself, again, check out the recording. But again, if I wanted to reduce the quantity, so I ordered 10, if I wanted to reduce that to 8, for instance, I'd be in a similar position. I've got to essentially take at least the difference off order, and then I can reduce the quantity on the order itself. But again, the main scenario that you're likely to come across is where you've shown stock being delivered in error. So you've received the delivery in error. So I'll just click receive deliveries. But again, this is where it says, do you wish to update the stock and record a delivery? Now, when we were in the sales orders, what it did at that stage when we dispatched it, it updated the stock, but it also generated an invoice onto the invoices list. It doesn't do that on the purchase orders side. All it does is it adjusts your stock. So if I click yes, and then essentially that's it done. Now, if I've dispatched that in error, that's fine. I haven't shown anything going across to the supplier account just yet. So the only consideration at this stage is, what do I want to happen with that order? Do I just want to delete it? If so, I can highlight it and delete it. But for the products and services, for that one that I did order, I've now got 20 in stock. So to sort of undo what we've just done there, if we start with a purchase order, I could delete it. Let's get rid. So it's gone. And the only other thing is within the products and services list, I've got too many in stock. So I've shown these being received in error. So this is where we can highlight that product. This time we can adjust out. So we can go into the adjustment out, make sure we've got the right stock selected, into quantity, and we can say, right, we want to adjust 10 out of stock. I'll save it. And then that one is back to where it was. So I hope that one makes sense. But again, a few different scenarios. There's a really detailed, and I've included that as a clickable link on this slide if you've downloaded it, creating purchase orders. And there's links to if you've I think I did include it on the scenarios list as well. So on the list of scenarios, again, I've included that link at the bottom of the slide. So if you need to delete or reverse a purchase order, it'll guide you through those options. It can be a bit more in depth depending, again, whether it's non-stock or stock. And also, if it is stock, do you use this stock valuation? That's your other question. And that's what we'll be covering in a bit more detail in tomorrow's stock session. So hopefully you can come along for that one. Now, if you've got any questions, if you excuse me, if you want to quickly pop them in there, we'll try and pick those up as best we can. Just pop onto my file, get onto the final sort of slides that we want to cover. If you weren't quite with us at the beginning of the session there, then to submit any questions that you might have, you just need to click the little speech bubble icon, give it a click, and then you'll have access to that little box in the bottom right-hand corner. Quick question from Helen there. Helen's just asking, can a euro purchase order be deleted? It makes no difference in that respect, Helen. So it doesn't matter whether sales orders, purchase orders, invoices, credits, doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter whether it's in pound sterling or you've got it flagged as a foreign currency, it would still work in exactly the same way. Still same sort of process. Again, any questions, quickly pop them in there. We've still got Abby and Jackie on hand, who'll be on hand at the end of the session to help answer those questions. Loads of information in the Help Centre. I've obviously included some links on the bottom of the slides, so do use those. You should be able to find the information really easily anyway. Just go to sage.co.uk/help, then choose Sage 50 Accountants. Be able to search for the relevant supporting information that you need. Now, this corrections webinar is just one of a series of webinars that we're running for corrections at the moment. So we've done both customer and supplier sessions, we've done correcting journals, VAT transactions we've looked at as well. So this week we're on to invoices and orders. Stock is tomorrow. On Thursday we'll be looking at corrections to the bank reconciliation area and bank feeds. So I'll be guiding you through that one. And then in December, we'll also be, as part of this series, we'll be covering bank transactions as well. So some of them will overlap a little bit here and there. So invoices and orders and stock will go very close, sort of hand in hand, those two topics. So I would encourage you to get signed up. The link to get yourself registered will be included on the follow-up email. Loads of other sessions as well. Jackie's currently running you through the VAT return. We ran part 1 this morning. Parts 2 and 3 will be tomorrow and on Thursday. Year end we're going to be covering on Thursday. Remote data access is next week. And then, if you've not heard yet, we will be starting to run sessions for version 31. So you'll be hearing a lot about that in the coming weeks, if not months. Global changes, and of course, coming up to the Christmas period, we're going to concentrate again on adding messages and bits of text to your invoices, showing how easy it can be to do that. So loads of options for you. So do get yourself registered. The links to get yourself registered will be included on your follow-up email. Linda, you just mentioned that you haven't been receiving your follow-up emails. The follow-up emails are sent automatically. So if you're getting your registration emails, I would expect you to be getting your follow-up emails as well. If not, do check out your, they are just sent automatically, and you would get one whether you attend or you don't. As long as you've registered, you're going to get some sort of email. If you've attended, you'll get the thanks for attending style email. It just goes to exactly the same email address that you registered with. If you're not getting those, I would assume it's either going to be in your maybe your junk folder or your spam folder, or for whatever reason it may be being blocked by your email provider. Right, okay. Brings us to the end of the session. Any final questions? If you want to pop them in there, we'll just wait another couple of minutes just to see if anything else does come through. But many thanks for coming along. Hope you've enjoyed it, found it useful. We will be running the session again. If you've, for some, you might be new to the invoicing and credits area or sales orders, purchase orders. You might want to go through and have a look at those separate webinar recordings on the process itself, just to try and familiarize you with them. Then by all means, get yourself registered again. We will be running these sessions again next week. Now there will be a little survey pop up as you leave. We always do that. If you've got any sort of feedback on the webinar, you want to give us a score, you want to share any thoughts, ideas, or just general feedback, then do take a minute to complete that survey. Any comments you have, we love reading those just to see if we've hit the mark or not. But any ideas you want to share with us, great. Let us know what you'd like to see covered going forward. Your follow-up email, which hopefully the rest of you are receiving, will be with you in round about, I think it's about 2 hours time, with it being a brand new session, this one. So hopefully we'll have the recording available by then. Ignatius, your question there, you mentioned there, quick one, how do you delete a completed customers when they've won a quotation? So when you enter a quotation, if you flag that as being won, then it will essentially generate an invoice for you. You can then, if you want to, you can get rid of the quotation if you want to from the quotations list. So just be a case of highlighting it, clicking delete at the top. Simple as that. No harm in leaving it there though. You could just maybe apply a filter as well to your list if that's an easier option for you. You might want to leave it on there for your records, just so you've got that should you need it. There is a separate webinar recording as well on quotations. Again, do check that out if you think it would be helpful. Right, we'll end the webinar just at that point. I think all the questions have been picked up at that point. Many thanks for coming along. Do take the opportunity to complete that survey. We really appreciate it if you can. And hopefully we'll see you on some other webinars soon. Many thanks.